What's up, guys? It's Jordan from Blackwater, Japan, and I got one question for you. Does your gauge cluster happen to look like this? Do you have multiple burnt out needles and possibly burnt out backlights? Well, today I'm going to go over replacing needles and also bench testing them to test if they work outside of the car. So, first things first, I'm going to remove the cluster and I'm going to go inside and I'll show you guys what's next. Alright guys, so now that we got the cluster outside of the car, we're just going to be taking off this front cover here. Now this cluster is specifically for the 1992 to 1996 ES300, but as far as testing and replacing the needles go, it should be pretty much the same for 1992 to 96 ES300, 1993 to 1997 GS300, and 1992 to 2000 SC300 and SC400. LS400 is a little bit different. If you go look at my other videos, you'll kind of see how the clusters are slightly different in the way that you remove the needles and change some of the backlighting and whatnot. So let's get started with this guy. As far as replacing the needles goes, the main thing you have to take off on the cluster itself is simply just this front cover here. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to have two screws, one here, and then I'm going to have some little push clips that just push it and have this come right out. So I'm going to do that real quick. It's going to take me 2 seconds. And as you can see, wow, a lot of stuff is just coming out of this guy. As you can see, I just have these clips. And this should just come right off like so. Just like that. Set them aside. Be careful not to break anything. And then you'll see all these needles here. Now, for me, my gas gauge lights up, but all the other needles don't. I already changed all the backlighting to LEDs a while ago, so I confirmed that all my backlights work. I'm just simply replacing these needles. So now let's go into testing the needles and how you know they're good. All right, so let's say you went to the junkyard and you found your same model vehicle and you decided to take the needles out of the cluster to hopefully find out if you can replace them on your own cluster. Well, to test these needles to see if they work, all you'll need is a 9-volt battery, just like this. And depending on which car you have, some of them have different polarity. Some will be positive, negative on this side, positive, negative like the ES does. And other ones, you'll have to flip this battery and test the other way. So for instance, these have already been tested. These three are all good to go. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And these are some that are failing or bad. Another thing I want to show you is I've taken so many cluster needles from the junkyard, and here's what that looks like. All of these are bad. Every single one of them are bad or dying or almost dead. These are the only three that I have in my pile that work perfectly. I'll show you what that looks like here. So you're basically just going to see these two little metal ends here, and you're going to try and basically touch that to the positive and negative here on the 9-volt battery. It looks like something like this. See how that one lights up perfectly. Test this guy too. Perfect. And perfect. No glitchiness, nothing fading away, no flashing, nothing. So we'll have these two here, and this is like what would happen if it was bad. So see, that one's flashing at the end. This one's pretty much dying, and I believe this one's just completely dead. You would touch it on here, and yeah, see, nothing would happen. So that's how you basically test the needles. If you're not getting a response right away, just make sure that you are getting a good connection on these guys. Try it a couple times, you know, kind of move the battery how you need to make this work. Maybe flip it around depending on what car you have to see if the polarity is any different. For ES instance, it's this way on the battery, which is going to be positive that way, negative that way. So positive on this side, negative on this side. And you'll see that one's failing. So now I'm going to go into showing you how to replace the needles. Okay, so I have my cluster with the face off, and all my needles are right here. So as far as SC300, SC400, ES300, and GS300 goes, you can simply just grab these and slide them right off. Now be very careful. Sometimes they are sticky and sometimes they will break. Sometimes you might need a tool to slide them off. Let's try that right now with the speedometer one here. I'm just going to grab the edge and just carefully wiggle it back and forth, just pry it up and down, and it comes off perfectly just like that. Okay, now this is a needle that's bad. I'm gonna simply replace it with one that's good. And I'm gonna see these two little tabs here. I'm just gonna push this guy on here. Okay, just like that. That one should be good. Now I'm gonna go over to this guy. And with the RPM and the speedo, you kind of want to make sure you put it on at the 0 mark. And especially with the RPMs, I noticed the RPMs can be off a lot if you happen to put the motor back on way down low. So let's just simply kind of wiggle this guy back and forth. This one's being a little bit more, oh, there it comes. It's gonna be very gentle with it, and you got the needle off. Now we're gonna replace this needle. I'm just gonna kind of aim it at the 0 mark. And that should be good right there. And then we'll do the cold and hot temp gauge. Sometimes you might need a little bit of help. Just like that. So on this instance, I used this guy to get up under here, and I just kind of turned it barely, just a tad, and that helped me just press it a little freely, and it came right off. So I'm gonna put my last guy back on there. As you can see, my stopper for the temp gauge actually broke off. I'm not sure if that's gonna cause me a problem, but I don't think so, because it's been like that for a while. So I'm just gonna put it on how it went before. Yep, and that's on there. Okay, so that's how to replace the needles. Now we're gonna do a quick video, a little short clip after this, on how to test this before you put it back in the car. Okay, so now that you have your needles replaced and you wanna test everything to make sure everything lights up before you put it back in the car, you're gonna wanna flip this guy around, and you're gonna be looking at these 3 terminals here. Now, this one is specifically for 1992 to 1996 ES300. But if you look at some of my other videos, you'll see that I've already made videos on how to bench test and illuminate clusters from other vehicles like the SC300, SC400, LS400, and whatever else. But for the main part, it's always going to be the middle clip here, and it's usually always, the positive is always the top right, and the negative is always either the bottom left or the 2 left ones here. So what you're gonna need is a 12-volt source, of course, like a battery or a jump pack. I prefer to use a jump pack. And you're gonna need 2 test wires here with some little alligator clips on the end. And then I'll give you guys a quick close-up to see which pins I go to jump on here. So like I said before, we're just gonna worry about this guy here. And it doesn't matter if you don't have the pigtails with the harness coming out of it. I don't, obviously. So we're just gonna put positive and negative to the correct pins, and you should be good to go. So for the power, it's gonna be the farthest to the top right side over here. It's gonna be that very top right pin, and should be good. And then for the negative, it's gonna be the farthest left pins, top and bottom. So these 2 on the very far left side, and I just take this guy and open them all the way up and get a good grab on there, just like so. So now that we have everything hooked up the way it should be, I'm just gonna flip this magic switch on the battery jump pack, and if I did everything correctly, the lights should illuminate. Don't get discouraged if your lights don't illuminate right away. You may just have a bad connection. You may just need to wiggle these terminals just ever so slightly, or maybe on the jump pack / battery side. So let's flip this switch and hope for the best. And as you can see, everything lights up. So you can see I replaced all the needles. I am definitely slightly scared about this one pointing all the way at the bottom because of this little safety stopper here broke off. But I think since everything works, once I get it in the car and get the car up to temp, it should jump back up where it needs to be, and that's all that really matters. But basically, that's how you replace your needles, test your needles, and that's how to bench test an ES300 cluster. All right, guys, one last thing I wanted to mention was I'm sure you saw that my temp gauge, the needle fell all the way down, like way under the mark, and that's because one of the little stoppers had broken off. So what I did to fix that is I super glued the stopper back in place, and then I actually put the cluster back into the car with this needle off, and I started the car and let the car get to temp, and then I put my needle on because I was having trouble where it was sitting way too low at temp or it was sitting way too high. I couldn't get it in the right position. So I let the car get all the way up to temp with the needle off and then put the needle back on. So if you run into that situation, hopefully that helps you figure that one out. Anyways, I hope you guys like this video, and that's going to be it. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks, guys. Peace.